championship. Their 7th in a row, 9 out of the last 10 for Johnny Wooden, the Wizard of Westwood.
And it remains one of the most incredible runs in sports. UCLA, under Wooden, reeling off 10 national championships in 12 years. One player on that 73 team, forward Larry Farmer, went on to coach the Bruins in the early 80s and wrote a book about it called Role of a Lifetime. And he joined me to talk about those unprecedented teams and seasons. Well, Larry, I really enjoyed reading your book. What a story. 89-1 as a player for UCLA basketball. Take us back to when you were just a kid in Colorado and you watched this team on TV with your mom and your dad. What made you so passionate about wanting to don those 4 letters on your chest and play for Coach John Wooden?
Oh, boy, that's a great question, Kyle. You know, it was a combination of things. You know, first and foremost, there was Coach Wooden, this genteel Midwesterner who never seemed to get flustered, who always kept things under control. And then watching the UCLA Bruins play, there was a rhythm to how they played and pressed and played defense and played together. And the very first time I watched them play on television, it was love at first sight. Always wanted to be a Bruin after that.
Well, here we are at the 60th anniversary of the beginning of this dynasty. So when you came on board in the late 60s and early 70s, this juggernaut had already begun. So how does a young man like yourself come out of high school playing amongst these teammates that were high school All-Americans? How did you have the confidence to try to find your niche on this team?
There were great players. There were All-American players. There were guys that were destined to be first-round draft choices and go to the NBA. The great thing about it was I was immediately accepted into that UCLA brotherhood. And then playing in those in the men's gym, you know, before school started, or certainly after school started, playing with the upperclassmen, there was a certain amount of paying your dues and showing those older guys that you were, in fact, going to be a good player. It was almost like the rite of passage.
And let me remind our audience, some of the teammates that you're referring to are NBA Hall of Famers. We're talking about Jamal Wilkes, and we're talking about Bill Walton. And Larry, these were your teammates. And just talk about the pressure year in and year out of living up to that UCLA dynasty.
You know, that's where I think we might have been shielded because Coach Wooden did a great job of keeping us in the moment. You know, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about win streaks. As a matter of fact, Coach Wooden never used the word win in practice or in team meetings. He never talked about that. But he always talked about us getting better and us being the best version of ourselves that we could be. So despite all of the pressure, and there was obvious, you know, pressure, the 88-game win streak, winning national championships, but he really kept us in the moment, only worrying about ourselves and getting a little bit better every day. And because that became the culture in practice, what we heard, all of us bought into it. And this, you know, again, we heard about the streak. We heard about how great we were. We were ranked number 1 for 2 straight years. But every day in practice, it was always just about us.
But it's too little, too late. And the game ends with a score of 81-76. UCLA has won its 6th consecutive NCAA basketball championship.
You personally won 75 games in a row before your final game at UCLA your senior year. You lost during your sophomore year. You didn't lose again. Okay, you reeled off 75. You had a perfect season, 30-0, and then you had another one. So night in and night out, I mean, anything can happen in the game of basketball. How on earth do you just have that level of perfection night in and night out?
You know, Coach Wooden always talked about having the perfect practice, you know, where everybody worked hard and no one made mistakes. And, you know, certainly that wasn't going to happen. But his approach was like that. So we never had a letdown. You know, you win 30 games in a row. Well, maybe you start feeling pretty good about yourselves. And so as you approach that 31st game, yeah, you've read the newspaper, you know, you're walking around campus, everybody's patting you on the back. And now you have a letdown. But because Coach was always working for that next perfect practice, there was never a letdown in terms of what he expected out of us.
You went on to the NBA, and as you were trying to make that Cavaliers team, you talk about this in your book. Coach Wooden was checking in weekly to see what your progress was like because he wanted to make sure that if it didn't work out for you at the pro level, that there was going to be a coaching opportunity for you back at UCLA. I find that remarkable. Can you talk about that a bit?
When I got released by the Cavaliers 2 days later, I was the graduate assistant coach back at UCLA. It was Coach Wooden looking out for me. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. You know, I was one of those players that listened to everything that he taught us. I tried to play exactly the way he wanted us to play. And I think because of that, he always felt that maybe I was coachable and I could turn my coachability into being a coach myself.
Definitely the greatest dynasty in the history of men's college basketball. When you look back upon that, how does that make you feel? What thoughts come to mind as you reflect on your career?
I think each year I get more and more overwhelmed with the amount of success. You know, it's 50 plus years later, and the things that we accomplished all those many years ago, some of those things are still records. And, you know, experts are saying, you know, they'll say from time to time that some of the things that we did will never be duplicated. And that makes you feel pretty special.
The book is called Role of a Lifetime, Larry Farmer and the UCLA Bruins. He is the author. Larry Farmer. Larry, this was a fun trip down memory lane. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We're back with more right after this.